Global warming or global war in India's awakening? War in the Pacific? It's PNN. Hello and welcome back to PNN, your Polandball News Network. It is the week of January 15th, 2024, and a lot has happened in the world since our last broadcast, so let's get right into it with a brief overview of the events this week before we get into the big news. Any northerners noticing a lack of snow and cold this winter? Just be sure to ignore the Russians and Scandinavians who are freezing their asses off, of course. They don't count. Well, if your answer is yes, that's because 2023 was declared as the hottest year ever recorded, beating out 2016, the previous record holder. While scientists are saying that El Niño is largely to blame for the rise in temperatures, that still won't bring back the ice that has melted during this tropical winter. Someone should really warn Greenland. Meanwhile, down south, I hope that Kiribati and the Maldives have begun to start house hunting because they're running out of time and procrastination isn't going to do them any favors. On the bright side, I hear there's going to be a lot of lakefront property available all over the world very soon. They should put their bids in while they can, especially considering the skyrocketing house prices all over the globe. Over in the Red Sea region of the Middle East, India has deployed 10 warships as a response to the Houthi attacks on international shipping trying to access the Suez Canal to move their goods. As discussed last week, the rebels in Yemen have put a stranglehold on the valuable access points to the canal, and a group of nations have stepped up to try to put an end to it. However, India is often a country that chooses to go its own way, not bending to the whims or wishes of the other great worldly powers. As a result of this maverick attitude, the Indian government has specifically chosen not to join the United States-led Operation Prosperity Guardian that is operating in the area, and it is instead choosing to operate independently. Aside from fighting Chinese soldiers with sticks and stones because they're not allowed to use firearms in their Himalayan border disputes, India rarely chooses to flex their military might. And with this in mind, it's safe to assume that their entrance into this conflict is slightly surprising to say the least. Could this be the beginning of their widely forecasted Indian century? Honestly, probably not. But it's great to see India doing their part to stabilize global trade. It helps everyone, so do your part and fight the rebel scum. Enough about the Middle East. Let's now move on to East Asia, the peaceful region where the level of drama and chaos directly correlates with the mood swings of petulant dictators. With the Taiwanese general election looming just over the horizon, Taiwan's estranged counterparts in China proper have felt it was necessary to flex their muscles against the tiny island nation once again. It had been about 3 days since the Chinese government had last tossed a hastily written threat towards Taiwan, and the inevitable feeling of insecurity had obviously crept back into the halls of the Chinese parliament. The government of the People's Republic of China has a well-known policy where they must scream into the face of every nation on earth that there is only one China, and that China is them. Not letting them yell this proclamation into your face is considered to be deeply disrespectful and can often result in a wide variety of negative things happening to the offending nation. Some of these things include getting yelled at, threats of economic punishment, getting yelled at some more, and a lot of stink eye. Well, this week it was the United States' turn to have the one China policy shoved down their throat. In a meeting at the Pentagon between the two countries, China once again made it very clear that there is only one China, and I quote, "There will be no compromise." If the United States couldn't get the one China policy through their head the 807th time, they definitely did now. This stirring of the pot comes at a significant time globally as everything has seemingly gone straight to hell. What, with global economic woes, wars in Europe, and conflicts raging in the Middle East once more, the last thing we need is another superpower starting a war. Seriously, who writes this stuff? First there's a land war in Europe, and now there's a chance of an island-hopping campaign in Asia? This is just a rehash of the last one. Let's now move on over to our main story of the broadcast this week. This week, England and Wales passed sweeping restrictions on XL Bullies, the United Kingdom equivalent of the American pit bull. XL Bullies will no longer be allowed in public spaces without a muzzle, leash, and microchip. Numerous owners and their bullies have already fled to Scotland where the laws do not apply. Speaking of safe havens for fleeing criminals, Argentina has an exciting year ahead of them thanks to their new president Javier Milei. Milei is the world's first libertarian head of state. Argentina has always been a cesspool, well, let's say a melting pot, of political ideologies, ranging from military junta to what they unironically called radical centrism. That's before we even get into the mess that was Peronism, a thankfully impotent blend of fascism, communism, and everything in between. Argentina has never shied away from complete political chaos. If you don't know what libertarianism stands for, don't worry, Javier Milei explains it perfectly, and I quote, "For me, the state is an enemy, as are the politicians who live off of it." He vows to free the Argentine people from the oppressive yoke of the state by eliminating, let me check my notes here, healthcare, education, workers' unions, and environmental protection. Yeah, all that stuff is just government overreach. The free market will surely figure it out. By the way, can I interest you in an EpiPen? Only 10 easy payments of $49.99. No? Well, would you like to play a game of Where'd I Hide the Peanut in your cupboards? Milei spent this week trying to begin dismantling the government of Argentina, but has hit his first major obstacle, the government of Argentina. The sweeping reforms submitted to Congress would put the country into a state of national emergency and give him the power to do whatever he wanted, including banning primary elections and imprisoning protesters. Because as we know, free speech is of course the arch nemesis of freedom. Don't let the name confuse you. We'll keep you up to date as best we can. The way things are going in Argentina, we're either going to get the Second Falklands War or a 7th Argentinian military coup. 7th? Am I reading that right? Wow. Well, I was joking, but since you release coups like Marvel movies, it doesn't seem so funny now. That's all the news I'm willing to cover for this week. Thank you for tuning in to PNN, your Polandball News Network. Goodbye, and have a wonderful evening.